Explained by the Billy Meier contacts. Mysteries, myths, legends, conspiracy theories, historical inaccuracies, and more. Compiled by David Chance, revised October 18, 2023.
Heaven's Gate Cult. Heaven's Gate Religious Group, https://offbeategan. Com is 1606A. Heaven's Gate UFO Cult 394. HTML. See also extraterrestrials, Giza intelligences, the Baphoth. Contact Report 035.
You shall once again interfere in earthly events and exercise your powers, for things are happening which are of decisive importance with regard to the standing of the reality of all extraterrestrial life forms. The world domination-addicted intelligences of Giza are preparing a very malicious crime to harm various other intelligences they dislike and question their credibility. In recent times, they have made great efforts to influence terrestrial humans in sectarian form in order to commit, in this form, an unusually malicious crime against human life, whereby the existence of extraterrestrials is to be made impossible and ridiculous, but whereby, on the other hand, their madness of religion for the purpose of their world domination addiction is to find new breeding ground for them. Here's the thing now. For some time now, a couple of Earthlings in particular have been under the evil influence of the Giza intelligences in order to initiate criminal and degrading things in their evil sense. The purpose of these machinations is to mislead Earthlings in larger masses with the lying instruction that the Earth will no longer be habitable in about a decade. According to this assertion of lies, the Earth humans would therefore die en masse and everything would fall prey to death. However, it is not given that all terrestrial humans must die, why a rescue by extraterrestrials is intended. Willing persons would therefore be picked up by extraterrestrial intelligences by a spaceship and brought to another, better and more beautiful world, where they would have a free and better life. This has already been announced through billboards and other advertising. Also, a meeting serving this evil cause was already held last Sunday, 14th of September, 1975, declaration of 16th of September, 1975, to get hold of the willing. That is what happened in America in a place called Waldport. The interested people were told at this meeting that from now on they could go to a camp where they would be prepared for the alleged flight into space in order to cope with the complaints of spaceflight, but also to gather the necessary knowledge of the new life on the pretended other and better world and to adapt to the new life. The only condition for this resettlement undertaking was that all earthly goods be sold or otherwise disposed of, and that no children be taken along. Unfortunately, there was more willingness for this evil enterprise than could be calculated. In haste, many of the interested followed and chased after the lures of the advertisers to await in said camp for the things which were supposed to come. The further consequences of this well-considered criminal enterprise are absolutely clear to us, and there are various prospects for the misguided. 1. The whole enterprise is to be disguised in a religious form, in the form of a new sectarianism, whereby all the willing are to be deceived and misled in order not to grasp the real background. 2. Weak and otherwise unfit persons shall be gradually separated and murdered. 3. Several of those found to be fit are to be slavishly forced, as work robots on Earth, to perform frontline duties for the benefit of the Giza intelligences, who need many earthly things, but which they do not want to acquire through their own work. 4. Several of those found to be fit are to be abducted and enslaved away from Earth. 5. Several should found a new sectarian organization and thus work on Earth in a religious form for the plans of the Giza intelligences. These 5 points were elaborated by the Giza intelligences and will be applied. However, the Earthlings advocating this plan are not aware of these facts because they live in an implanted delusion. Now, however, the Giza intelligences have ascertained that we are concerned about the matter, so they are looking for new ways in order to not let their undertaking fail. But there is the danger that the misguided ones will all be murdered, because for those addicted to world domination, the life of an Earth human is of absolute insignificance. We now instruct you to try to do things in your form and to try to avert the worst. We ourselves endeavor to disrupt the Giza intelligence themselves in their actions.
Contact Report 260.
You surely know what all happened on the Earth in connection with this comet, with which I mean the sectarian machinations, through which mass suicides occurred in bulk, like with the suicide cult of the American guru Applewhite.
Yes, these sad events are familiar to me. On the one hand, they are connected with the appearance of the comet, and, on the other hand, with the end-of-the-world fantasies and delusional ideas that allow many confused people to forget all reason. And the many sectarian preachers of salvation will also contribute to this in this deadly form in the future, because the Christian turn of the millennium, which is supposed to come but which has truly already been exceeded, incites all those who are confused to continue to believe in the saviors of extraterrestrial origin, who will allegedly fetch the chosen ones among the faithful sectarians of the Earth into spaceships in order to save them before the end of the world. And since these allegedly extraterrestrial saviors should be of a spiritual nature and should be beings of light, etc., whom one should only be able to approach as a spiritual form, the slogan applies that the human must rid himself of his material body through suicide, so that his spirit form or soul can be taken up by the alleged luminous saviors into their spaceships. This is actually the basic, sick thought of the cult leaders and their followers.
Contact Report 568.
One only has to think of all the other UFO sects of the same orientation, which in the same way carry out their sick machinations and make their believers docile with all the nonsense, exploit them, and drive them into mental distress and misery, or even suicide. A bad example of this was the religious sectarian Heaven's Gate UFO sect founded in the early 1970s in the USA by Marshall Herff Applewhite, which he then led together with the nurse Bonnie Lou Nettles until her death. The members of the cult were under the delusion of being extraterrestrials themselves, and the collective suicide of most of them took place in 1997, during the appearance of Comet Hale-Bopp. In preparation for their suicide, they drank lemon juice to ritually cleanse their bodies, believing that their suicide would also contribute to the growth of the internet, because the members of the sect were web designers. Death was ultimately brought about by taking phenobarbital mixed with apple juice and vodka. The 39 dead bodies of cult members were found in March 1997 in a rented villa in Rancho Santa Fe community north of San Diego, California. The dead bodies lay in bunk beds, neatly covered with purple blankets and shoes with the same new Nike trainers. All of them also had luggage and money for the journey in the UFO or spaceship with them. The whole thing caused a big sensation worldwide. Applewhite convinced 38 of his followers to commit mass suicide, because this was the way to send their souls on a journey in a UFO or spaceship. The spaceship was supposed to be located behind the comet and fly after it. Marshall Herff Applewhite, 1931-1997, worked as a church musician and was the son of a Presbyterian preacher. However, due to health problems of a psychological nature, he was released in 1970. A year later, because he was homosexual, he tried to be cured of his illness in a hospital. There he met the nurse Bonnie Lou Nettles, who was born in 1927 and died in 1985. The two stayed together after they met until Nettles's death. Both were interested in astrology and also believed to have known each other in previous lives. In their religious delusion, they saw themselves surrounded by various spirits and guardian angels. And according to their delusion, which also referred unrealistically to UFOs, they founded their fanatical UFO sect and called themselves the Two, later also Bo and Peep, as well as Winnie and Pooh, etc. In the following years, they gathered a small following around them and became widely known. First, they called their UFO sect Guinea Pig, then Human Individual Metamorphosis, then TOA Total Overcomers Anonymous. Finally, they named their sect Heaven's Gate. The sect structure of Heaven's Gate was similar to a medieval monastic order, where the members of the sect abandoned all private property and privacy, lived ascetically, and performed and undertook everything collectively. They lived in a villa which was fully equipped with technical surveillance facilities so that all members could be closely monitored. Various male members, of course also Applewhite itself, had themselves neutered in order to maintain a better asceticism. Everything in the villa was very precisely labeled. Also, all light switches, all shelves and containers. When Bonnie Lou Nettles died in 1985, Applewhite continued the UFO sect on his own, which was financed by professional website development under the name of Higher Source.